Listen now to the book, One Night with the Hybrid King, written by the author Anya Curves. If you want to buy the ebook, link in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share. Chapter 46, Aria. Kids, it's time to leave for school. My voice echoes through the house as my hands remain submerged in soapy water, scrubbing the last of the breakfast dishes. Seconds later, I hear the excited shouts of my children rushing down the stairs. They come barreling in like tiny whirlwinds, and before I can brace myself, I feel their arms wrapped tightly around my waist. Can I play hopscotch before school, Mommy? Eloan asks, her voice brimming with energy. Her bright green eyes lock onto mine with eager anticipation, and her little feet can barely stay still as she waits for my answer. She's bouncing slightly, as though her small body can't contain the energy bubbling inside her. Okay, but only for a few seconds while I finish up here, I say, trying to keep a serious tone, like a mother determined to enforce rules, though I know full well the control has already slipped through my fingers. But don't leave the sidewalk, all right? Stay on the hopscotch. Before I've even finished speaking, she's darting out the front door. I hear the light sound of the door closing behind her and her quick footsteps echoing on the pavement. A part of me wishes I could carry the same lightness she does, the same carefree joy. But my thoughts are abruptly interrupted by the still presence of Thorn at my side. He doesn't move. Unlike his sister, he stays rooted in place, captivated by something outside the window. His brown eyes, which seem to hold a wisdom far beyond his years, are fixed on the scene outside. Something draws him, though I can't see what. I try to follow his gaze, but all I notice is the familiar view of our garden and the quiet street beyond. I wish Daddy could take us to school today. Don't you, Mommy? Thorn says suddenly. His words freeze my heart in my chest. I kneel down in front of him, lowering myself to his eye level. His soft brown curls fall gently across his forehead, and he scratches the top of his head, confused, waiting for an answer. Perhaps the absence of a father figure is starting to weigh on him more heavily. What should I do about this? How can I explain this to them? Oh, my little angel. My voice comes out in a whisper, nearly breaking as I try to remain calm. I gently cup his face, hoping to convey a sense of security I don't truly feel. I wish your daddy could do that too. But he's far away, remember? He's missing these important moments, but I'm here, and I'll take you to school. I try to sound optimistic, strong, as if that alone could fill the void. But Thorn, with his honest and questioning eyes, isn't convinced. But isn't that him out there playing with Eloan? The confusion in his voice hits me like an unexpected blow. He points toward the window, his eyes still fixed on something I can't see. A wave of unease climbs up my spine. Could it be? I arch an eyebrow at him and rise to my feet, making my way to the living room window. From this vantage point, I can see the sidewalk where Eloan is playing. With trembling hands, I pull back the curtain and peer outside, hoping it's only a child's imagination. But what I see makes the ground seem to vanish beneath my feet. Caelum, holding Eloan by her shoulders with a familiarity I wish I could deny. The contrast between them is striking. The imposing man, his presence as commanding as ever, and the little girl, so uncannily similar to him in ways I had never noticed before. My heart pounds erratically in my chest. What is he doing here? Why now? The similarities between the two, always so subtle, are now glaringly obvious, impossible to ignore. The same bright eyes, the same restless energy, the same presence that fills every inch of space around them. A mixture of panic and confusion swirls within me. Every fiber of my being screams to push him away, to protect my children, to protect myself. No, please, it can't be him, I stammer nervously, still watching, unable to move. My mind races, searching for answers, justifications, anything to make this vision vanish. But reality stands unyielding before my eyes. What are you doing there, Aria? My mother's sudden voice startles me. Mom, I need you to take the kids to school today. Please, I say, trying to maintain composure, though my voice betrays the urgency. Go outside and grab Eloan. I'll pick them up later. She frowns, displeased. What am I, their nanny? You said you'd take them. I have plans with my friends. We're heading to the casino. Her complaint ignites something within me that I'm desperately trying to keep in check. Just take them to school. I shout, unable to contain the frustration that bursts out of me. The tension that's been building finally spills over, and I see the shock in my mother's eyes. I take a deep breath, nerves frayed, and close my eyes for a moment, trying to regain some semblance of calm. Please, Mom, just today. Fine girl. Come on, Thorn, let's go. My mother relents, though her irritation is unmistakable. She grabs Thorn's tiny hand with a hurried, determined motion, and his face reflects concern, a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. My heart aches at the sight. I've never yelled in front of him. In truth, I've never even yelled at my mother. My chest rises and falls rapidly, my heart pounding as though it's trying to escape the emotions I'm trying to suppress. I feel the air rushing into my lungs, fast and almost painful. Anxiety builds inside me like a wave ready to crash, impossible to contain. I try to focus on something, anything, but all I see is Thorn's frightened expression as he's led away by my mother. Through the window, I watch her grab a Loan and guide her away from Caelum. Caelum stands motionless on the sidewalk, watching the twins leave with my mother. The tension in my body grows with every passing second that he remains there, and I feel my palms grow damp. It's as though his presence is sucking all the air around me, leaving the space heavy, suffocating. My skin feels clammy, cold, despite the morning heat. "Please, just go. Go away, please," I whisper quietly as I watch Caelum linger in front of my house. But he doesn't move. Not immediately. His tall, imposing figure remains rooted, as if anchored to the ground. And then suddenly he turns. His emerald gaze, piercing and bright, locks directly onto the entrance of my house. Each step he takes feels heavier than the last, and I feel my heart leap into my throat. Panic churns inside me. I can't let him ring the doorbell, can't let him come too close. In a desperate motion, I barely think before I act. I dash to the door, flinging it open abruptly, rushing out so quickly I nearly trip over my own feet. I have to stop him from crossing into the safe haven of my home. I have to keep this distance between us. Caelum stops abruptly a few meters away from me, as if my sudden appearance has caught him off guard. His eyes widen briefly, but then the initial surprise fades and a calm, almost melancholic smile forms on his lips. It's a smile that carries something deeper, something unsettling because I can't quite decipher it. It's not a threat, but it's not a reassurance either. "Aria," the way he says my name is soft, laden with an intimacy that disarms me. It's not just a greeting, it's as though he's pulling forth a world of unspoken memories and feelings, all contained in that single word. My body reacts with a shiver that runs down my spine, leaving me feeling vulnerable in a way I hate. His proximity makes me want to step back, but my feet remain rooted in place. My eyes meet his for a fleeting moment, and it's as though I'm transported to another reality, a universe where our pasts collide inexorably. I try to remind myself of who I am, who he is, and the barrier that must remain between us. I offer a hesitant bow in his imposing presence. Seeing him up close sends a chill through my body, and my throat feels dry. "Your Majesty," I begin, my voice slightly shaky. "What an honor to have you here." But even as I speak, my throat tightens, as though each word is a stone I'm forced to swallow. He's closer than he should be, and his nearness stirs emotions I don't want to acknowledge. "I want to thank you for everything you've done for me," I continue, the words tumbling out faster than I'd intended. As I speak, I try to avoid his gaze, but I fail miserably. His eyes are locked on me, intense, and the connection between us feels almost tangible. I attempt to focus on something, the sky, the trees, the distant hum of cars, but the truth is, everything around me seems to lose meaning with him here. For rescuing me from that deranged old woman, and for what my mother told me about your care while I was at the hospital, my words begin to blur together, tangled with the nervousness rising inside me. The memory of that incident surfaces like a ghost I'd rather bury, and the knowledge that Caelum was there during such a vulnerable moment unsettles me further. "I can't thank you enough for your immense generosity, Your Majesty." Finally, my eyes meet his again. The silence that follows is suffocating. My legs feel heavy, as though weighed down by the intensity of his stare. He doesn't look away, his emerald eyes seem to pierce through every layer of my resistance. I stammer, grasping for something else to say, but the sensation of being under Caelum's penetrating gaze steals the words from my lips. Everything about him is a blend of power and serenity. His features are sculpted, flawless, and the way he looks at me ignites an uncomfortable warmth within me. I try to maintain my composure, but deep down, I'm completely unarmed in his presence. Chapter 47, Aria. "It was the least I could do for you, Aria," Caelum responds, his deep, firm voice reverberating through my entire body. "Besides, I'm still investigating the rebel attacks, and the murder of your former boss at that time might have been connected to the Wolfspawn renegades," Caelum explains. My eyebrows lift, a mixture of surprise and discomfort washing over me, and I feel a slight tremor in my hands as I hear this. Am I still being investigated? For a moment, silence stretches between us, laden with a tension I hadn't expected to feel. Caelum seems to pick up on my confusion, my unease, and steps forward to clarify, his emerald eyes locked onto mine as if he's determined to dissolve my doubts immediately. "You are no longer the prime suspect in the murder," he says, his voice taking on a reassuring tone that somehow only makes me more tense. "Rest easy. After your abduction and the death of his wife, our investigation pointed to others being involved." A mix of relief and uncertainty courses through me as I cross my arms tightly in front of my body, as if trying to hold my heart in place, which insists on pounding uncontrollably. The air feels heavier, thick with an emotion I can't quite name, a combination of nervousness and something deeper, more primal. Caelum's presence, so close to me, makes everything around me feel denser, as if time has slowed, allowing every detail to sharpen intensely. "Forgive my intrusion, Your Majesty," I begin, trying to steady my voice, though it emerges with a timidity I can't suppress. My hands still tremble slightly, but I do my best to hide how much his proximity unsettles me. "But why are the wolf-spawn renegades attacking you? I'm human. I can't fully understand this lycan world." Caelum offers a faint smile, but there's sadness there, mingled with bitterness in his eyes. He slips his hands into the pockets of his dark trousers, the casual gesture revealing more of his sculpted physique, the muscles of his arms and chest standing out beneath the tailored shirt he's wearing. I try to look away, but it's as though something keeps pulling me back to him, an attraction I can't deny but fight to control. "It's because I'm a hybrid, Aria," he says, his voice low, carrying a weight that goes far beyond the words themselves. "My mother is an enchantress, and my father, the former king, was a lycan. There's always been only lycans in power. I'm the abomination of the monarchy." He raises his hands to make air quotes, his eyes gleaming with a trace of defiance. "And on top of that, I married an enchantress just like my father. It's been 5 years and we still haven't produced heirs. These rebels want pureblood royalty, and I'm not that." Every word he speaks carries a pain I never thought I'd associate with Caelum. He always seemed so untouchable, so strong, so beyond any weakness. Yet at this moment, I feel as though I'm witnessing something few ever have, his vulnerability. A man torn between two worlds, rejected by the very people he's sworn to lead. The sadness in his voice resonates in my chest, awakening a profound empathy I can't suppress. Without thinking, I step closer to him, my fingers finding his arm and stroking it with a tenderness that seems to rise from the depths of my being. "It must be unbearably hard to be rejected by the people you vowed to serve. I'm so sorry you have to endure that," I say softly, my voice filled with calm and compassion. Caelum lowers his gaze to my hand and then, surprisingly, takes it, intertwining our fingers. The simple touch of his skin against mine is enough to send a wave of heat through my body, and for a brief moment, the world around us seems to disappear. It's as if time has stopped, as if all that matters is this contact, this silent connection that seems to say more than any words ever could. He gently pulls me closer, his hand guiding mine to the curve of his neck, where I can feel the pulse of his heart, strong and quickened. The rhythm of his heartbeat aligns with mine, in an almost perfect synchronicity, as though we're connected by some invisible, inexplicable force. Every inch that brings us closer sends my mind into conflict with my body. I cannot allow myself to feel this. I cannot forget who he is, what he represents. Caelum may be the father of my children, but he is married to a woman who has the power to destroy my life. A single touch, a single gesture, and I could be condemned for eternity. His hand reaches my face, the touch gentle, filled with a restrained desire that nearly makes me forget how to breathe. The rational part of me screams to pull away, but the warmth of his touch is irresistible, almost hypnotic. It's as if all my instincts are at war, and I don't know which side will win. Our faces are so close now, his lips mere millimeters from mine, and I can feel the heat of his breath. My entire body aches for that kiss, but my mind finally asserts itself. I cannot get involved with Caelum. I cannot get involved with a married man. "Your Majesty," I whisper, my voice low and trembling, almost inaudible, as my lips nearly brush against his. "Why did you come to my house?" My words are a last-ditch effort to ground myself, to break the growing sexual tension between us. Caelum battles something within himself. For a brief moment, it seems as though he too was on the verge of losing himself, but now he's trying to regain control. His hand, however, doesn't leave my face. On the contrary, his thumb grazes my lips, a simple gesture, yet charged with a desire we are both desperately trying to ignore. I Caelum stammers, and this hesitation disarms me. He rarely allows himself to be vulnerable, so seeing him stumble over his words hits me in an unexpected way. His head tilts slightly, and our noses brush lightly, sending a shiver down my spine. Our faces are so close I can feel his breath. "I wanted to see you," he continues, his husky voice reverberating between us, "and find out why you haven't been coming to work." The tension between us dissipates slightly as he pulls back, and the relief I feel is almost as strong as the discomfort caused by the distance. My heart is still racing, erratic, struggling to calm itself. I straighten my posture, trying to catch my breath as Caelum does the same, standing tall with his usual imposing presence. I take a few steps back, feeling the need for a little more space, as if any closer proximity might consume me. My fingers automatically tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, a nervous gesture I perform without even realizing it. I try to distance myself, not just physically but emotionally as well. My fingers graze my own neck where, moments ago, his fingers had brushed, the touch still lingering on my skin like an invisible mark. "I resigned," I announce, my voice faltering slightly before regaining its firmness. The mere mention of the reasons behind this decision brings the weight of recent events crashing down upon me. After everything that happened with my former boss and his wife, I just couldn't go back there. Caelum's eyes, usually bright and mesmerizing, seem to darken. The vibrant green that always shone in them fades, as if my words had somehow brought a shadow to the surface. He nods slowly, and the silence between us thickens, dense like the fog of a cold morning. His features harden, and for a brief moment, the vulnerability I had glimpsed in him vanishes, replaced by the king he is accustomed to being, the relentless, cold, and calculating leader. "Are you working somewhere else now?" The question comes out with his usual firmness, but there's a trace of concern he tries to mask. He's regaining his composure, reasserting control, but something still lingers in the air between us. I sigh, hesitating. "No, not yet. I've had some interviews, but I haven't found a job yet," I explain seriously. "Work for me," Caelum says abruptly, the command in his voice unmistakable, as if it's not a suggestion but an order he fully expects me to accept. "What?" The word slips out before I can stop it, my surprise breaking through in a high-pitched tone. "That's right," he repeats, his eyes shining with determination. "Work for me with me, however you want to put it. Come to the palace." My mind feels like it's spinning. His words echo in my head as I try to process what that would even mean. But I start to speak, but lose my train of thought midway, unable to articulate anything coherent. "What would I even do?" I ask, trying to impose some kind of order on the chaos he's just thrown at me. He merely shrugs, as if it's the simplest thing in the world. "We'll figure that out when you get there." There's a glimmer of humor in his eyes now, as if he finds the situation mildly amusing. "You were right to leave that other job. It's better to work with me again," he says, letting out a brief laugh. "At the palace, you'll be safe. I have guards, surveillance cameras, and the salary, Aria, will be far better than anything you'd find out there." Chapter 48, Aria. His proposal hits me like a punch to the gut. Work for him again? The palace? The memories of the last rebel attack flood my mind like a hurricane, fragmented scenes of destruction and chaos blending with the promise of safety he's trying to sell me now. But that safety, that false sense of tranquility he promises, does nothing to lift the suffocating weight of the reality I must face. He might be the father of my children. The contrast between his tempting offer and the chasm of complications it brings leaves me reeling, as if I'm being pushed toward an impossible decision. My thoughts are murky, jumbled, as I try to process every implication of accepting or refusing. Caelum is like a magnet, an irresistible gravitational force pulling me toward him, even when I know I must keep my distance. I take a step back, shifting my weight from one leg to the other, trying not to succumb to the tension growing between us. My heart races erratically, and my mind spins, desperately searching for a way out, a logical answer. But everything circles back to that night 5 years ago. As hazy as the memory is, like a distant, distorted dream, my body still reacts to that moment. It echoes within me in ways I can't control, and that terrifies me. I can't allow myself to feel this again. I can't fall into this trap of emotions, this dangerous whirlwind that is Caelum. Being a king's mate was never my goal. In truth, being anyone's mate was never part of my plans. And Caelum is married to a powerful enchantress, Queen Seraphina, who wouldn't hesitate to eliminate any threat to her throne, her husband. If she discovers that there was ever any involvement between me and him, any trace of that night we shared, my fate will be swift and cruel. Death would be the most likely outcome, and not just for me. My children. The mere thought of anything happening to Thorn and Aloan sends a tremor through me, from head to toe. If Caelum discovers they might be his children, everything will change. They'll be branded as bastards. And that will place them in the center of a silent war, where both the Queen's wrath and the rebels' hatred will fall upon their innocent heads. Seraphina, with her ruthless power, would stop at nothing to protect her reign. And the rebels, who are already searching for any weakness in Caelum's kingdom, would see my children as targets, valuable pawns to be eliminated. My mind races and fear consumes me. The mere thought of anything happening to them makes my entire body shiver, as if a cold current were coursing through my spine. I must keep my distance. For them. For us. Look, Your Majesty, I'm very flattered by the offer. My voice comes out shaky, almost a whisper, as I try to summon the strength to refuse. But the words catch in my throat, and before I can continue, Caelum interrupts. Unfortunately, Aria, I'm not going to take no for an answer, Caelum declares, his voice taking on a firmer, more serious tone. I lift my gaze to meet his. His face, both serious and amused at the same time, confuses me. He's not joking, yet he seems to take some sort of perverse pleasure in this situation. His hands slide into the pockets of his trousers, and he leans forward slightly, shortening the distance between us again. The air around us seems to vibrate, tense, and my heart pounds wildly against my ribs. Every part of me screams to retreat, but at the same time, there's an irresistible pull. If I were brave enough, if I were once again the reckless young woman from 5 years ago, I would lean forward and kiss him now, without a single thought for the consequences. But I'm not that young woman. Not anymore. I am the king, Caelum continues, his deep voice now closer, resonating with authority. And this job is in order. I just remembered I need someone to organize my wife's birthday celebration. His tone softens, but the impact of his words is brutal. Queen Seraphina? I stammer, my mind racing to keep up with the curveball he's just thrown at me. The idea of working for him was already surreal, but planning Seraphina's birthday? The woman who, if she found out the truth, would eliminate me without a second thought? Caelum chuckles briefly, the curve of his lips forming a smile that almost disarms me, yet only intensifies the tension gnawing at me from within. He confirms with a slight nod, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. I know how much you earned at your previous job, he says, his voice now laced with a seductive pragmatism. I'll pay you double. No, better, quadruple. And with all the benefits, of course. My eyes widen instantly at the mention of the salary. It's as if, suddenly, a window opens in my mind, illuminating a reality that once felt so out of reach. With that amount, things at home wouldn't just improve, they'd change drastically. I could repair the roof, which threatens to collapse every time a storm rolls through. I could fix the windows, which creak ominously on windy nights. Maybe even replace the worn-out furniture, scarred by years of use and effort. New clothes for Thorn and Aloan. My children deserve that. They deserve more than I can offer right now. For a fleeting moment, I see Aloan's radiant smile as she receives a new dress, or the look of wonder in Thorn's eyes as his broken toys are finally mended. These images and emotions swirl through my mind in a whirlwind. Caelum seems to notice the sudden shift in my expression. His eyes miss nothing. He's sharp, observant, and the smile that forms on his lips is laden with triumph, as if he knows that at this moment he's gotten exactly what he wanted. His smile stirs a mix of wariness and fascination within me. He takes another step toward me, closing the distance between us until there's almost no space left. The heat of his body is palpable, radiating toward mine. My heart races, my breath catches in my throat, and I remain frozen, as if rooted to the ground. When his lips draw close to my ear, I can almost feel the electricity in the air. Every nerve in my body awakens, alert, vibrating with his nearness. See you at work next week, Aria. His words are low, husky, carrying a level of intimacy that completely disarms me. The whisper seems to ripple through every cell in my body, and a shiver runs down my spine, making every muscle tense and my heart pound even harder. His lips graze the skin of my cheek, a light, fleeting kiss, almost ethereal, yet it reverberates within me with unexpected force. It's as if the simple contact ignites an explosion of sensations. My senses sharpen, my heartbeat becomes erratic. The bitter awareness that I should refuse him mingles with the uncontrollable desire to give in. A storm of thoughts and emotions engulfs me, Yet at the same time, I feel trapped, frozen, unable to respond the way I know I should. I want to respond. I want to say that I can't, that it's too dangerous, that being near him will only further complicate my life, my mind, and especially my heart. I want to tell him that my priority is my children, that my place is not beside a king. But nothing, absolutely nothing, comes out of my mouth. The words remain trapped, suffocated by the chaos of conflicting emotions he stirs within me. I just stand there, unable to articulate a single sentence, while my entire body still vibrates from Caelum's proximity. Our gazes meet again, and this time, the smile he gives me is even more disarming. There's something unsettling, almost arrogant, in the way he looks at me, as if he knows the devastating effect he has on me. A smile that makes me want to truly kiss him, to lose control, to completely surrender to this irresistible force he exerts over me. Caelum scratches the back of his neck in an almost casual, spontaneous way, but somehow the gesture only makes him more attractive, closer, more real. As if for a brief moment he were just a man and not a king. He takes a few steps back, creating a distance that simultaneously relieves me and leaves me longing for the closeness we just lost. I try to speak, but my words come out disconnected, stammered, as if my mouth can't keep up with the whirlwind of thoughts in my mind. The soft laugh that escapes from Caelum as he watches me in this state is both comforting and disconcerting. He's amused by my reaction, but not in a cruel way. It's almost as if he's appreciating my vulnerability. He gives a slight, courteous bow. When he turns and begins walking toward the car, I feel as though the air around me slowly starts to circulate again, as if I can finally breathe once more. I watch his unhurried stride, his firm, confident steps crossing the street, the sound of his shoes echoing against the pavement. With each step he takes, a part of me tries to process what just happened, what is about to happen. I'm going to work at the palace. I'm going to be near Caelum again, the man who very likely is the father of my children. The same man who is married to one of the most powerful and dangerous women I know, Queen Seraphina. Caelum, the king facing terrorist attacks, desperate to secure heirs for his kingdom. And me, I'm caught in the middle of it all.
Chapter 49, Alexander. Feeling the wind glide through my fur has always brought me a peace that nothing else in the world can. It's as if each breeze carries away a part of the restlessness that resides within me, lifting the weight of my thoughts and easing, even if temporarily, the burden I bear. Every gust connects me more deeply to the earth, to my most primal self, to the beast that lives within me. The firm forest floor beneath my paws anchors my mind, giving form to the chaos that constantly threatens to consume me. Each step I take as I run grants me a sense of control, of stability, something I so desperately lack when I'm in my human form. Shifting into a wolf, especially here in the heart of the Veridiana kingdom after so many years away, still comes with a mixture of surprise and relief. Everything around me is both familiar and distant. The sturdy trees, the bushes whispering in the wind, the scent of damp earth and leaves, all of it forms a scene that is part of me, that lives in my memory, yet seems different after so long. Each time I allow my body to take this form, I feel as though I am rediscovering a part of myself that had lain dormant, as if the wolf within me awakens from a long slumber, hungry and eager for freedom. Yet, no matter how far I run, no matter how deeply I dive into this temporary escape from reality, my thoughts always return to the same place. To her, Aria, my sweet, beautiful, gentle Aria. Her image invades my mind like a storm, a presence I can never fully banish, no matter how hard I try. The longing I feel for her is something that transcends reason, a fire burning in my chest that refuses to be extinguished. It cannot be measured simply, like the number of stars in the sky or the drops in the ocean. It is infinite, immeasurable, a constant void that nothing but her presence can fill. My heart has always belonged to her. Even now, after all these years, after the circumstances that tore us apart, it is still hers. It always will be. But the thought that torments me, that consumes me, is the doubt. Does her heart still belong to me? After everything that has happened, does she still see me the same way? Has she forgiven me? What eats away at me is the cruel way I had to end our relationship. The lie I carried, all in the name of protecting her. As if it were possible to protect someone by breaking their heart. Caelum's support, his willingness to help me win Aria back and make her my mate, has been part of my plan since the day I was forced to leave her. 5 long years ago, when I turned my back on her, I promised myself that I would return, that I would fight for her, that I would win her back. I would make Aria my wife, and nothing, Not even the past would stand in the way of that goal. Syltirion, the kingdom where I've spent these years apart, gave me courage and clarity. A place where different species coexist in a way unlike anywhere else, where my dual nature is accepted, helped me grow and define what I truly want. And what I want is simple, Aria. I don't care about titles. I don't care about the position of duke or any privilege that power might offer me. I would give it all up without hesitation, just to have her by my side, to love her in the way she deserves to be loved. But a fear lingers over me, shadowing my every step even as I run in my shifted form. What if she has already moved on? What if, in these 5 years, she has found someone else, married, built a new life without me? The mere thought fills me with a deep unease, as if something is tearing me apart from the inside. It's time to return to the castle. My responsibilities call. I need to know how the investigation into the rebels is progressing, those who threaten the kingdom and Caelum's throne. I need to infiltrate their group, uncover their secrets, find their weaknesses. And for that, I need to create a persona. A new me, a mask they cannot identify. I'm exhausted from being a spy, living so many years in a lie, immersed in the shadows of Syltirion. Being someone I am not drains my soul. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I almost forget who I truly am. The masks I've created, the personas I've inhabited, become more real than Alexander himself. But if all this sacrifice, serves to secure Caelum's support for my marriage to Aria, then I accept it without hesitation. If I must carry this burden once more, if I must infiltrate again, then I will. Because in the end, every false facet, every lie told is for her. For us. The meeting with Caelum and the royal advisors is brief, but loaded with valuable information. Asher, my right-hand man, managed to find a location where the rebels are gathering, Caelum informs, tossing a folder filled with papers toward me. I open it and quickly scan the details. It's near the border between the capital and the coastal city. And the enchantresses? Is there anything in the outskirts of Grimroot Forest? I ask curiously. If what you told me is true, that the lycans are working with enchantresses, then it's likely there's also a rebel group in Grimroot Forest. I'll have Asher look into it. I admit I've been focused on other matters, and this slipped by, Caelum says regretfully. That's why I need you, Alexander. You have insight. Your mind sees beyond the obvious. Caelum's eyes meet mine, and for a moment I feel the weight of his expectations. And I, despite being exhausted, despite feeling fragmented, return his gaze with a nod. I'll use the next few days to study every detail of this information. My voice is firm. I believe by next week, I'll have a plan to begin the infiltration, Your Majesty. I remain in the car, motionless, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly that the knuckles of my fingers are white. My gaze is fixed on Aria's house. The facade hasn't changed much since the last time I was here, except for the subtle marks that time has left. The paint, once bright, now shows signs of wear, small chips revealing older layers of the house's history. The silence in the neighborhood is so dense it feels like the air is pressing in around me, and only the distant sound of a passing car breaks the monotony. My eyes lock onto Aria, who moves back and forth across the room. Her figure is visible through the window. Even from afar, her face carries a weight that breaks my heart. There are too many worries etched into her expression, shadows under her eyes that tell a story of sleepless nights. And still, she remains the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Her olive skin glows under the sunlight that pours through the house, and her brown hair, slightly tousled, falls over her shoulders in a way that always captivated me. Every time I see her, it's as if the world around me stops, and all my memories with her return, vivid and painful. I take a deep breath, trying to find courage in the depths of my soul to finally step out of the car. Every fiber of my being wants to see her up close, hear her voice, feel her presence, but fear holds me back. What will I say? How will I justify my absence? My hands begin to sweat, and the heat inside the car feels unbearable. Before I can make a decision, I'm interrupted by a sound that shatters the silence of the street. I hear laughter, childish laughter echoing around the corner. I turn my head toward the sound and see 2 children running along the sidewalk. A boy and a girl, with smiles so wide they seem to light up the entire street. The sound of their small feet hitting the cement fills the air, and for a brief moment, the quiet neighborhood comes to life. Their laughter is pure, carefree, something that surprises me in this setting. Behind the children, a figure appears that makes me catch my breath. It's Lyra, Aria's mother. She looks much older, the lines on her face deeper, her graying hair more noticeable. Time has not been kind to her, and her tired posture reflects the years that have passed since I last saw her. She seems exasperated, shouting after the children as she tries to keep up with their pace. "What did you do at school to be so worked up like this?" Lyra complains in an irritated voice, her patience clearly worn thin. The children only laugh in response, their energy relentless, and the sound of their laughter is so contagious that for a second, I feel a smile form at the corner of my mouth. My thoughts begin to swirl around these children. Who are they? Why are they here? And more importantly, what role does Lyra play in this? Before I can process it all, the sound of the front door opening cuts through the air, and my heart races as if it's about to explode. Aria appears in the doorway, and the world seems to slow down. She kneels with a wide smile, her arms extended, waiting for the children running toward her, shouting with joy the word "Mommy." The ground disappears beneath me. My head spins. The words echo in my mind like thunder, each syllable reverberating deep in my soul. Aria as children? I feel my body lean against the driver's seat, my breath becoming irregular. "Look here, Aria. Your kids are impossible." Lyra complains from across the street, walking into the house and leaving Aria and the children standing in the doorway. I hear Lyra shout, her voice heavy with frustration. She enters quickly, leaving Aria and the children at the threshold, as if this is something routine. As if these children had always been part of Aria's life. And in the back of my mind, the truth begins to form. These children, they really are Aria's. My vision blurs for a moment. I force myself to focus on the details. The children with their smiles, hugging Aria with such familiarity, such joy. They don't look older than 6. Every detail of the scene begins to fit together in my mind like pieces of a cruel puzzle. The question forming in my chest is one that nearly destroys me. Could these children be mine?
Chapter 50. Aria. "Mom, can we watch a little television before dinner?" Thorn asks, already taking off his shoes with a hurry that only children have, sprawling across the couch as if it were his throne. His bare feet smack against the cushion carelessly as he lazily settles in, arms outstretched, claiming space. Before I can organize my thoughts and give a firmer response, the doorbell rings. My heart races immediately. Could it be him? Has Caelum dared to show up here again, without warning? My body instinctively prepares for the internal battle that arises every time I'm in his presence. Just the thought of seeing him makes me want to run away, yet at the same time, I crave him in a way that consumes me. I can't allow Caelum to get too close to my children. I can't handle the consequences of another interaction between them. The tension between us is enough to take my breath away, and the fear of giving in to the desire I feel for him is even greater. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that threatens to take over me. "Just 10 more minutes of television, and then you need to take a bath, understood?" I announce before heading toward the door. Thorn and Aloan's victorious cheers echo through the room before I can process anything, and in seconds the television is already on, flooding the room with sounds and colors. I let out a light laugh, a sound that almost hides the growing panic within me. My children, so simple in their desires, so carefree about what's going on in my heart. If only I could be like that again, as light and carefree as they are. I stop in front of the door, my fingers brushing the cold doorknob. I silently pray that it's not Caelum on the other side. I can't bear another wave of tension between us, another dance of provocations and glances full of unconsummated desire. Just imagining his scent invading my space, the proximity of our bodies, I feel a sharp warmth in my stomach. And worse, the desperate urge to kiss him. Always that same damned urge. Finally, I summon the courage. I open the door slowly, my shoulders tense, bracing myself for whatever comes. But what I see on the other side completely disarms me. The figure of a tall, imposing man materializes before me. It takes a few seconds to process what I'm seeing, and when I finally recognize him, it feels as though my heart is ripped from my chest. Alexander. His name escapes my lips in a stunned whisper, almost inaudible, as my mind struggles to accept what my eyes are seeing. He's here, in front of me. He looks different, so different from what I remembered. His face, which used to be so familiar, now carries the marks of changes time has brought. There's a new scar, a fine line just above his right eyebrow, that seems to have a story of its own. His hair is longer now, with waves that fall carelessly, wilder, fuller of life. His eyes, those same ocean blue eyes that always fascinated me, stare at me with intensity, but also with something more, something I can't immediately decipher. A tattoo, partly hidden, adorns his left arm, half of a design that didn't exist 5 years ago. Every detail of him screams transformation, an evolution that I wasn't part of. I feel a mix of emotions rising inside me: surprise, shock, curiosity, and a bitter pang of longing. "Hi, Aria. I didn't think you'd open the door." Alexander speaks with a voice deeper than I remember, rough, as if the weight of time had added layers to it. But there's still that softness, that tenderness he always had when speaking to me, and now it hits me with a force that almost knocks me down. My heart pounds in my chest, so hard that I can hear the echo in my ears. I can do nothing but stand there, stunned, staring at Alexander as if he were a mirage. A chill runs through my body, a mix of shock and something I dare not name. I feel my lungs tighten, my breath becoming short, irregular. Our gazes meet, and in that instant, the world around me seems to stop. There's no more sound, no more street, no more house, no more children, nothing. Just the two of us, frozen at that moment, as if time had frozen. It's a silent exchange, filled with everything that's been left unsaid, with all the things that were never spoken. Unspoken feelings float between us, like ghosts that were never exorcised. The longing I feel is almost tangible, thick, extending like an invisible veil over us. The memories of our past come rushing back, uncontrollable. Our dating, our conversations, the laughter, the touches, everything returns with painful clarity. Every detail, every second spent with him haunts me in a way I didn't expect. It's surreal to be standing in front of him again, after all this time, and I can hardly comprehend the avalanche of emotions that hits me. Alexander, I repeat his name, almost voiceless, as if simply mentioning his name has the power to make me lose my footing. He gives a crooked smile, that unmistakable, mischievous grin that always had a devastating effect on me. My heart melts, as it always has, and I realize, with a lump in my throat, that effect hasn't changed. Even after all these years, even after all the time that has passed. Before I can process anything, a child's voice cuts through the silence. "Sir, why do you have a scar on your face?" Thorn asks, appearing out of nowhere like an arrow shot from a bow. My heart nearly leaps out of my chest from the shock, and I lower my gaze, seeing my little boy standing there, looking at Alexander with curiosity written all over his face, his finger pointed directly at the scar now adorning Alexander's eyebrow. I blink, surprised by Thorn's sudden appearance, and quickly lower his little hand. "Thorn, it's rude to point and ask those kinds of questions, my son." My voice comes out firm, laden with seriousness that I hope he understands, but at the same time, I struggle not to seem nervous. It's difficult because my whole body is tense, as if on high alert. But, to my surprise, I hear the sound of soft laughter. Alexander laughs, his sound reverberating in the space between us, with a naturalness that catches me off guard. He's always been like this, able to see the humor in the simplest and most innocent things, even in the most inappropriate questions. But he thought it was funny, Thorn retorts, looking at me with that childlike look of triumph, which only causes my attempt at seriousness to crumble. Before I can think of a response, my son turns to Alexander, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Do you want to come in and watch cartoons with us? There's a character who has the same scar as you. But he has it because he fought against scary giant sea monsters." "Did you fight against giant sea monsters?" he asks, his eyebrows raised, as if he were facing a real hero. For a moment, I'm the one left speechless. Alexander, however, once again locks eyes with me, his gaze seeking mine as if waiting for my permission to enter. It's a moment full of meaning, and I feel its weight on my chest. My heart, traitorous as it is, desperately wants him to come in. It wants him here back, filling the space he left empty so long ago. Without saying anything, I take a deep breath and open the door wider, creating space for him to pass. I'm not sure exactly why I'm allowing this, I don't know what I'm doing, but my heart, it has its own reasons. And right now it wants Alexander inside, close to me, even though my mind is screaming the opposite. Alexander nods in thanks, stepping slowly into my house, one step at a time, as if he's testing the waters. Before I can process what's happening, Thorn, with the typical energy of a child, grabs his hand and quickly pulls him into the living room. My little boy, so small and full of enthusiasm, leads Alexander as if he's already a part of our life, as if he never left. I stand frozen in the hallway, unable to do anything but watch, catatonic, as the scene unfolds before my eyes. Alexander sits on the sofa next to Thorn and Aloan, and within seconds, my children are eagerly explaining the cartoon they're watching. It's as if Alexander has always been here, as if that sofa was a familiar place to him. He adapts quickly, as he always did. His movements are gentle, and he interacts with the children with such ease that it unsettles me. I hear Thorn and Aloan's laughter echoing through the room, loud and spontaneous, mingling with the sounds of the cartoon on the television. Alexander is making my children laugh, and this sight, this sound, stirs something inside me in a way I didn't expect. First, Caelum shows up in the morning, bringing with him a whirlwind of emotions and offering a job that could change everything. Now, by the end of the day, the ex-love of my life reappears after 5 years of silence, standing at my door as if time hasn't passed. How do I deal with this? How do I process everything that's happening? Before I can spiral into anxious, confused thoughts, I hear soft footsteps descending the stairs. My mother appears at the last step, carrying a basket of clean laundry to fold. She stops abruptly when her eyes land on Alexander sitting on the sofa. "Alexander?" The confusion is clear in her voice. His name comes out as a question, a mix of surprise and disbelief. She looks at him, then back at me, her face displaying an expression she can't quite hide. I cross my arms in front of my body, trying to protect myself in some way, and hunch my shoulders, not knowing what to say. "Hello, Mrs. Lyra, it's so good to see you again," Alexander greets her with that friendly smile he's always had. The sound of his voice is soft, respectful, but also carries a familiarity that stirs something inside me. With my mother's arrival, reality hits me like a cold wave, pulling me out of the trance I was in. I need to take control of the situation. I need to take the reins before everything gets even more complicated. "Mom, could you take the kids to the bath? I need to talk to Alexander alone." My voice comes out low, almost a whisper, but firm. It's not a question, it's a necessity. My mother doesn't complain or frown. She simply nods quickly and tucks the laundry basket under her arm. "You little rascals, let's go take a bath because you're going to smell up everything on Alexander. Come on, let's go, time for the shower." Lyra orders with unquestionable authority. My obedient and smiling children follow my mother upstairs without causing a fuss. If you like it, subscribe, share, comment, and like. If you want to read the book, link in the description.